Oh, yeah. That's the stuff. That's the stuff, folks. Happy Saturday. Happy college football week 2 Saturday. Welcome to Just Another Sports Betting Podcast. Guess what? If you watched the last video, you faded and you did a parlay, then you won every bet because I was absolutely wrong about everything last Saturday. If you subscribe to Dub Club or follow me on Twitter, I bounced back on Sunday with USC, and I had Boston College on Monday as well. But the Saturday slate absolutely destroyed me. First week of the year, the Saturday slate absolutely destroyed me. So the good news is that I can't do any worse. We can only go up from here, folks. We can only go up from here. So that's what we're going to try to do today. As you can see on the screen, these are the 6 games that I kind of like. I have some prop plays, and I'm not even fully betting all these 6 games, but they're the ones that I like the most. So if you're new here, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Do a lot of content here, whether it's sports betting, things related to Illinois basketball and the Cubs. So appreciate any support y'all want to give. Okay. So I forgot to put the link in my description, but you can also subscribe to the Dub Club. We're close to 10 subscribers. We're really close. But we're not there yet. We already got a comment in the chat from Aaron. Most importantly, how much will EIU beat Illinois State by? 1,000, because screw Illinois State. They couldn't even score against. Well, I will say this: they helped Iowa get an over last week. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But let's start with Texas with Texas and Michigan. God, it's 8:30 in the morning. Can't talk. All right, so Texas traveling to Michigan as 7.5 point favorites, going to the Big House, going up against the reigning national champions. And I know, let me just start off by saying, I know that Michigan's offense is completely different this year. No J.J. McCarthy. Their receiving core is different outside of their tight end. Blake Corum is gone. I get it. Their offense is brand new this year, but their defense is basically still the same, I would say. And I know the offense didn't exactly look electric against Fresno State, but you're giving me 7 points with a Michigan team that, even though it's brand new on offense, it's still ranked in the top 10 in college football this year going into today, going up against a really good offense. I will say that about Texas. Quinn Ewers is no joke, and even on the bench, what they have is good at quarterback. The receiving core, it's new, but also showed in week 1 that it can be really good as well, as they blew out Colorado State. I understand all these things, but you're telling me, you're giving me a touchdown for a home underdog, for a team that, whoever wins this game, it's going to solidify themselves as like a real college football playoff contender, right? Like, I just feel like that's the case. And no matter what, this game is huge for both these teams. And this is also a big spot for the Michigan's new head coach. Jim Harbaugh has moved on back to the NFL. And, these are big shoes to fill for Michigan. But, like, 7 points, and I still really like their defense. And Michigan is going to try and run the ball. And even though Texas won 52-0 last week, they still allowed 120 yards rushing on the ground. I think it was 118 to Colorado State. They had one guy who went over 100 yards. So they're going to try and run the ball with Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards. And I think they're going to try and control the clock as much as possible. And even though their offense is new, they're tied in Colson Loveland, one of the one of one remaining piece from last year's national title team at tight end. 8 catches, 87 yards last week. And Texas ranks around 88th nationally receiving yards allowed. So I just feel like this game is going to be close. Do I think Texas is going to win by double digits? No, I don't. So it'd have to be, if they win by 8 or 9 points, something crazy would have happened. Maybe a missed field goal of sorts or something. I don't know. But I just feel like getting them at a touchdown is free money. Would love your thoughts on that, folks. I would love your thoughts on that. Would love your thoughts. So I'm taking, like I said, I am taking Michigan +7. Forgot to make the banner. We're going to scroll it at the bottom here for people who are joining. We're taking Michigan +7. All right. That's the first bet of the day. Okay. Now, related to that game, I was talking about Colson Loveland. I'm taking over 40.5 receiving yards. All right. Loveland over 40.5 receiving yards. Got it at BetMGM. On DraftKings, the line was around like 42.5, 43. So to get him at 40.5, I thought was really good. Again, 8 catches, 80 plus yards last week. Got the most targets. He's the one most caught up in this offense, in my opinion. All right. Again, at home as home underdogs. And if anything, they will have to throw the ball eventually. I think they're going to try and run it a ton beginning of the game, but they will have to throw it eventually. And I think that he is going to get most of those targets. So give me Colson Loveland over 40.5 receiving yards as well. All right. And I was talking about Mullings. I'm taking Mullings to score a touchdown at +150 on DraftKings. He had 92 yards rushing last week. It was the best game of his college career, I'm pretty sure. He did it on 15 carries. He's definitely getting more than 15 carries today. I would be shocked if he is under 15 carries today. He's 233 pounds. He's a guy that if Michigan gets inside the 10, inside the 20, and they're running the ball, I think he's going to get those goal line carries. That's just kind of how I feel about it. And again, for someone who thinks that Michigan is going to cover, I think he's going to have a big game today. All right. So that's where I'm at on that. Again, let me update the banner for y'all. We're taking Michigan. We're going to hide that. We're going to edit it. Michigan +7. Colson Loveland over 40.5 receiving. And Kalel Mullings. I hope I'm saying his name right. Anytime TD. All right. Boom. Okay. So for y'all that are coming in late and don't see it. Whew. Let's stay in the Big Ten. Let's go to Iowa State and Iowa under 35.5. Yeah. All right. So if you've been following me on Twitter for the last couple of years, you would know that I just blindly bet Iowa unders every week. It doesn't matter. I had one hit when they played Nebraska last year. I swear to you guys, the total was like 25. The total was 25, and it still went under. All right. Brian Ferentz still there. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator to me is. Until Iowa proves otherwise, we blindly take Iowa unders all season until proven otherwise, folks. And they get Iowa State today. All right. And last year, this game went under. It was, I believe Iowa State won 20-13 or whatever. The final score was 20-13, I believe, last season. Okay. Funny enough, as I say all this, it did go over last week. They played Illinois State, though, an FCS school. And the big thing here is that Iowa didn't allow any points. Iowa's defense is always good. It was one of the best in college football last season. You know, I have no reason to believe that they will allow points or score points. This is why the total it gets so low. Okay. I was reading yesterday on Action Network. The under has hit in 9 of the last 10 Iowa games. It actually hit in like 79% of their games last year. There were a few that went over. Let's see. If this game were to go over, it would be the first time in 20 years Iowa's first 2 games of the season both would go over. So, yeah, I mean, I know watching these two teams play the last handful of years, they love to run the ball. They're very slow, stuff like that. And it's not fun to watch. I would put this game like on your second or third TV, unless you're an Iowa or an Iowa State fan. These games are always boring. Okay. So yeah, give me the under in Iowa State and Iowa, under 35.5. That's where I got it at, I believe, at DraftKings. On BetMGM, I saw it at 35. I would play it to like 33.5. I don't think it'll go any lower than where it's at. So, yeah, this is just an automatic play. This is an automatic play. This is a system play, as the big content creators will call it. Okay. Iowa State, under 33.5. Let's update the banner. I'm going to start using these lines instead. Iowa State, Iowa, under 35.5. All right. What is slate today, by the way? This is a 2:30 game, so you get a really good Michigan and Texas game, only to go fall asleep when you watch Iowa State and Iowa. It's like your nice little afternoon nap, right? Nice little afternoon nap. Okay. There is another 11 a.m. game, so let's go to that. Georgia Tech and Syracuse. The spread is 3 points. Syracuse at home, 3-point underdogs. I won't lie to y'all. I'm addicted to home underdogs. I really am. I don't know if it's a healthy thing, but all I know is that I'm addicted to it. And so let me just give you the narrative when we spin my 2 cents. All right, Georgia Tech, week 1, go to Ireland and upset, quote unquote, upset Florida State, win outright as 10.5-point underdogs against the Seminoles. All right, and then they handled Georgia State last week. They didn't cover, I don't believe, but they handled them fine. And now they travel to Syracuse, right? Georgia Tech, they did play in Atlanta last week, which whatever. But they started in Ireland, then went to Atlanta, and now they're going to Syracuse. Okay, so it's a lot of traveling here. 3-point favorites Georgia Tech is here on the road. They love to run the ball with Jamal Haynes and Haynes King. And let's see, the Orange allowed 255 yards on the ground to a MAC school last week, Ohio. So if there's any chance that Syracuse is going to not only cover this but win outright, it's if they can stop the run. And so far in 2 weeks, no one has been able to stop Georgia Tech running the ball. Okay. They've got 415 yards on the ground these first 2 games. But Syracuse has their new quarterback, Kyle McCord, who's the transfer from Ohio State. I think their quarterback play will keep them in this game. I think that after watching Florida State get absolutely pummeled by Boston College in week 2, it's kind of not looking like an upset anymore for Georgia Tech against Florida State. I think Florida State just stinks. And again, against Georgia State, to not cover Sun Belt team. I don't know. Maybe those wins aren't nearly as impressive as maybe they would look in the moment, I guess, as time has moved on. I just think Syracuse at home is a big game for them. I think Georgia Tech's defense, is one of the worst in college football last year. I think this could be their biggest test. Now, I understand why people thought Florida State was, but as we've seen these first two games, maybe they're just not very good. This could be Georgia Tech's biggest test. 3-point favorites on the road. I don't like it. I would sprinkle on the money line, but I'm going to go Syracuse +3. All right. Syracuse +3. Let's add it to the banner. And boom. Okay. Now, let's move on. We got 2 night games here. All right. And let's start with Colorado and Nebraska. I remember watching Colorado and Nebraska last year. Colorado was coming off that massive upset win as like 21-point underdogs against TCU the first week of the year. They hosted Nebraska at home in Boulder. And for that first half of the game, it looked like a complete different Colorado team compared to what they did against TCU. It did look like a massive letdown for them. All right. But they end up going on to win. They win by like 2 touchdowns. It was like 36-14, 3 touchdowns, whatever. But Nebraska shot themselves in the foot way too many times. They shot themselves in the foot way too many times in this game. This feels, not only does it feel like a revenge spot, because I'm sure they haven't forgot about that game because these two schools are rivals. But I do think Nebraska is a better team going into this season compared to last year as well. While Colorado, I believe, is also a bit improved. They also almost lost to North Dakota State week 1. As 10-point favorites, which was an inflated line. Everyone knew it was an inflated line. You can get them, if you can get Nebraska under 7 points, I would dabble in it. I like it. And I believe Colorado last year as an underdog did not cover at all. When they were a favorite, they did. I believe. I think there was only one game they did, and that might have been that game against Stanford. But yeah, they've been terrible with Deion Sanders as an underdog. And on top of the TCU game. So I think there's 2 games in there that they covered as an underdog last season. But I don't know. I know it was only one game. I know it was an FCS opponent, and it was an FCS opponent that is really good, is highly respected. But their defense just didn't look any better than it did the year before against Cam Miller and North Dakota State. And their defense didn't look that great. And there were times where Sanders looked like he couldn't be protected either. I just feel like if you can get Nebraska under 7 points, I would take it. And I hate it because Nebraska, betting on them just seems like you're setting yourself up for failure. But I would dabble in Nebraska -6.5. That said, I do like Shedeur Sanders over 306.5 passing yards because I feel like Colorado is going to be trailing, and no matter what, they throw the ball like 65% of their snaps. They threw the ball a ton last week, went over 300 yards passing last week against North Dakota State. They're going to be trailing. He's going to have to throw the ball. No matter what, he's still great. He's still going to be one of the best quarterbacks to come out of the draft this upcoming April. And they still have Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn coming off a 198-yard receiving performance. Their offense, I don't have a lot of worries for here because they can sling it. It's their defense and the fact that their offensive line is sus. And revenge spot for Nebraska here at home in a rivalry game. So give me Nebraska -6.5 and Shedeur Sanders over 306.5 passing yards. I got it at BetMGM at -115. Let's add it to the banner. All right. I'm not even really a Colorado hater. I'm rooting for Dion, by the way. It's just like you watch the games and then you listen to him talk sometimes, and it's like, what are we doing here? I mean, the whole thing with the reporter from the Denver Post, um, even, he basically doubled down on what he threw it when all they had to do was run the ball at the very end against North Dakota State, and they got lucky, honestly. Um, Again, I'm rooting for Dion. I just feel like that because of the popularity, the public coming in on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, to get them under a touchdown here, I feel like is kind of a steal in some ways. But either way, their offense is going to be great. Their offense is going to be fun to watch. Travis Hunter is a dog. He's going to, I honestly, like after 1 week, he looks like a Heisman candidate, but they're not going to win enough games for him to actually win it, I don't think. But, we'll see. Okay. All right, so let's go to the final game tonight. All right. I am how do I say this? I'm still getting adjusted to Big Ten after dark. Still getting adjusted to Big Ten after dark. But we get Utah State and USC at like 10 p.m. tonight. And Utah State, they were 35-point favorites last week, and they gave up 14 points and didn't cover against, I don't remember who the hell they played, but it just wasn't great. Now, the only reason that I like the over, which is 63.5, is obviously because USC's offense looked awesome against LSU last week. But Utah State just not exactly looking stellar on defense either. What do you call it? Robert Morris, that's who they played. That game against LSU, Miller Moss just looked, I'm not saying he looks like he's going to be the next Heisman or anything, but he looked really good in a primetime game, and led their offense in a game that they trailed most of the time. And I mean, I think that if anything, if you don't want to take the over, which I'm largely taking the over because it's Big Ten after dark, it's the last game, and I want to watch USC's offense put up 50 points. I like Kyron Hudson over 60.5 receiving yards. Okay. 60.5 receiving yards. He had 80 last week. And they threw the ball a ton to him and Branch for USC. So I think Hudson led the team in targets. And there's just this Utah State team I think, again, 35-point favorites last week, didn't cover, and they were trailing at halftime to Robert Morris. This is a game I feel like USC could come out and absolutely just blow them out. They might hit the over themselves just because they really want to cement themselves in that college football playoff. I think Miller Moss his passing yards total was like 333, which is a ton of yards, but he could easily do it. But I like Kyron Hudson over 60.5 receiving just because I think he's going to get the most targets. Utah State's defense isn't nothing to be afraid about. Now, the only thing kind of holding me back on the over is the fact that Iowa transfer Spencer Petras is the quarterback for Utah State, but he's like questionable to play. So if he doesn't play and Barnes plays at quarterback for them, then I would really consider the over. But yeah, it kind of scares me, the fact that I would have to rely on a former Iowa quarterback, which last year I watched him play. It wasn't great. So I like Kyron Hudson over 60.5 receiving yards. Okay. All right. Let me add that to the thing and then we'll get out of here real quick. I appreciate y'all for tuning in today. This is it. There are more plays on my Dub Club that I gave out. Go ahead and hit that subscribe for that. Hit the subscribe button for my YouTube channel if you so choose to. Would mean a lot. Let's add it here. Kyron Hudson over 60.5 receiving. Okay, we'll add it to the bottom here. All right. So again, appreciate you all for hanging out today. Good luck with your bets the rest of the day. Let's have a good college football Saturday. Going to put up Bears predictions tomorrow morning before I go to our Bears tailgate for CHGO. And yeah, hope y'all. Hopefully we win a bet today because we didn't win one last week. Not one, just not one. So we can only go up from here. All right. So again, hit that subscribe button, and I will see y'all in the next video. See ya.